We met for the first time, and when he put on that fedora and he strung on that whip, he gave shape and attitude and style and vulnerability. I owe Harrison a great personal debt.
Steven Spielberg has directed some of the most iconic films ever made. From heart-pounding adventures and unforgettable science fiction to deeply emotional historical dramas, his career has stretched across more than 5 decades. Along the way, he has worked with hundreds of talented performers, including many of the greatest actors in Hollywood history. Yet despite having almost unlimited choices, Spielberg has repeatedly returned to a surprisingly small group of actors. These are the performers he has praised in interviews, trusted with his biggest projects, and described as people who brought something truly extraordinary to the screen. What makes these actors different isn't simply their fame or their awards. Spielberg has always believed that great acting goes beyond memorizing lines or delivering emotional speeches. For him, the best performers possess honesty. They make audiences forget they're watching a movie. They create characters so believable that viewers become emotionally invested without even realizing it. Over the years, Spielberg has spoken openly about the actors who inspired him the most, challenged him creatively, and helped shape some of the greatest films ever made. Their stories reveal not only why they became favorites but also what Spielberg values most as a filmmaker. The first actor on that remarkable list may be the easiest to guess. Few collaborations in movie history have produced as many unforgettable moments as the partnership between Steven Spielberg and Harrison Ford. When Spielberg was preparing Raiders of the Lost Ark in the early 1980s, he wanted to create a new kind of action hero. Instead of a flawless superhero, he imagined someone intelligent but vulnerable, brave but capable of making mistakes. Harrison Ford fit that vision perfectly. After already becoming a global star through another legendary adventure franchise, Ford possessed exactly the combination of charm, confidence, humor, and rugged toughness Spielberg was searching for. Together, they created Indiana Jones, one of cinema's most beloved characters. Unlike many action heroes, Indiana Jones often found himself exhausted, frightened, or completely overwhelmed. He survived through quick thinking rather than brute strength, making audiences relate to him in a way few blockbuster heroes had achieved before. One of the most famous moments from Raiders of the Lost Ark wasn't even part of the original plan. During filming in Tunisia, extreme heat and food-related illness affected much of the cast and crew. Harrison Ford became seriously sick while an elaborate sword fight had been scheduled for filming. Instead of performing a lengthy choreographed battle, Ford jokingly suggested that Indiana simply pull out his revolver and shoot the swordsman. Spielberg immediately loved the idea. The result became one of the funniest and most iconic scenes in movie history. Audiences erupted with laughter because the unexpected moment perfectly captured Indiana Jones' personality. Rather than showing off with an impressive duel, he solved the problem in the quickest possible way. That single decision demonstrated the trust Spielberg placed in Ford's instincts. Trust became the foundation of their collaboration. Across 4 Indiana Jones films spanning more than 4 decades, Spielberg consistently praised Ford's ability to make impossible situations feel believable. Whether escaping giant boulders, outrunning Nazis, or searching for mythical treasures, Ford always grounded the adventure with genuine humanity. Spielberg has often admired actors who understand restraint. Harrison Ford rarely overacts. Instead of exaggerated emotion, he communicates through subtle facial expressions, dry humor, and quiet confidence. Spielberg once explained that audiences instinctively believe Ford because he never appears to be trying too hard. His performances feel natural, almost effortless. That quality made Ford one of Spielberg's most dependable stars. But if Harrison Ford represented adventure, the next actor represented something much more personal. Long before Spielberg became the world's most successful director, he was a young filmmaker struggling to prove himself. During that crucial period, one actor became almost an extension of Spielberg's own personality. That actor was Richard Dreyfuss. Their collaboration began with Jaws, a production now considered legendary, not only because of its success but because of the enormous problems behind the scenes. Mechanical failures constantly delayed filming. The famous shark malfunctioned repeatedly, forcing Spielberg to rethink entire sequences. Budget overruns mounted, schedules collapsed, and rumors spread throughout Hollywood that Spielberg's career might end before it truly began. Amid that chaos, Richard Dreyfuss delivered one of the film's most memorable performances as marine biologist Matt Hooper. Unlike the grizzled fisherman Quint or the cautious police chief Brody, Hooper brought youthful enthusiasm and scientific curiosity. Dreyfuss infused the character with nervous energy, intelligence, and humor, giving audiences someone who genuinely loved discovering the mysteries of the ocean despite its dangers. Spielberg quickly recognized that Dreyfuss possessed something rare. He wasn't simply acting. He thought exactly the way Spielberg imagined his characters thinking. That creative connection became even stronger during Close Encounters of the Third Kind. Spielberg has admitted on several occasions that Roy Neary, the ordinary man obsessed with mysterious lights in the sky, reflected many of his own childhood feelings. As a young boy fascinated by science fiction and outer space, Spielberg often imagined extraordinary things hiding just beyond everyday life. Richard Dreyfuss perfectly captured that childlike wonder. Rather than portraying Roy as mentally unstable, Dreyfuss showed him as someone driven by overwhelming curiosity. Audiences understood why he sacrificed everything in pursuit of answers because Dreyfuss made his obsession feel emotionally honest. Spielberg later acknowledged that Dreyfuss became, in many ways, his on-screen alter ego. Whenever Spielberg wanted to express amazement, fear, excitement, or fascination through a character, Dreyfuss instinctively understood exactly what the director envisioned. Their collaboration helped establish many of the themes that would define Spielberg's career: ordinary people encountering extraordinary events, families under pressure, and individuals driven by hope even when others refused to believe them. Although they eventually worked together less frequently, Spielberg has never hidden his admiration for Dreyfuss. He credits him with helping transform deeply personal stories into emotionally universal experiences. As Spielberg's career evolved through the 1980s and 1990s, he began exploring increasingly mature subjects. Historical dramas, war films, and true stories demanded actors capable of disappearing completely into their roles. Few performers have ever achieved that better than the next man on Spielberg's list. When Spielberg decided to direct Lincoln, he knew portraying Abraham Lincoln would require far more than physical resemblance. The actor would need to embody one of history's most recognizable figures without turning him into an imitation. There was only one person Spielberg truly wanted: Daniel Day-Lewis. By the time production finally began, Day-Lewis had already earned a reputation as perhaps the most dedicated actor of his generation. His preparation was legendary. He immersed himself in historical research, studying Lincoln's writings, speeches, personal letters, and countless biographies. Instead of creating the booming, commanding voice many people expected, Day-Lewis chose a softer, gentler tone based on historical descriptions from those who had actually known Lincoln. When Spielberg first heard that voice during rehearsals, he later admitted it felt almost unsettling. It no longer sounded like an actor performing. It sounded like history itself had somehow returned. Throughout filming, Day-Lewis remained almost entirely in character. Cast and crew naturally began referring to him as Mr. President, not because anyone demanded it, but because the illusion became impossible to ignore. For Spielberg, directing such a performance required something unusual. He had to step back. Rather than constantly giving instructions, Spielberg often allowed scenes to unfold naturally, trusting Day-Lewis to guide the emotional rhythm. The result became one of the most acclaimed performances in modern cinema and earned Day-Lewis another Academy Award. Spielberg has said that watching great actors work can sometimes be humbling because they discover emotional truths even the director hadn't anticipated. Daniel Day-Lewis reminded him that filmmaking is ultimately a collaboration, where even the most experienced director must sometimes become the audience. Yet despite the brilliance of Day-Lewis, Spielberg's longest and perhaps most meaningful artistic partnership was still waiting to begin. That partnership would eventually produce war epics, historical dramas, heartfelt comedies, and some of the most emotionally powerful films of the last 30 years. The actor who filled that role was Tom Hanks. Few director-actor partnerships in modern Hollywood have been as successful as the one between Steven Spielberg and Tom Hanks. Their first collaboration came with Saving Private Ryan in 1998, a film that forever changed how war movies were made. Spielberg wanted audiences to experience World War II with complete realism, avoiding the glamorous style often associated with earlier war films. To achieve that realism, he demanded total commitment from his cast. Before filming began, most of the principal actors underwent an intense military-style training program supervised by former Marine Captain Dale Dye. The camp was physically exhausting. Long marches, little sleep, constant drills, and strict discipline pushed everyone beyond their comfort zones. Tom Hanks embraced every challenge. Although he was already one of Hollywood's biggest stars, he never expected special treatment. Instead, he encouraged younger cast members to stay committed even when the training became miserable. That quiet leadership impressed Spielberg enormously. On screen, Hanks portrayed Captain John Miller with remarkable restraint. Instead of portraying a fearless superhero, he played an ordinary schoolteacher forced into extraordinary circumstances. Miller wasn't fearless. His hands shook. He questioned difficult decisions. He carried emotional scars just like the soldiers under his command. Spielberg admired that humanity. He has often explained that audiences connect most deeply with characters who remain believable under impossible circumstances, and Tom Hanks consistently delivered exactly that kind of authenticity. Their professional relationship only grew stronger. After Saving Private Ryan, Spielberg cast Hanks in Catch Me If You Can, The Terminal, Bridge of Spies, and The Post. Beyond feature films, they also became producing partners on acclaimed World War II television projects including Band of Brothers, The Pacific, and Masters of the Air. These weren't simply business collaborations. Over the years, Spielberg and Hanks developed genuine mutual respect. Spielberg has frequently compared Hanks to classic Hollywood legends like James Stewart, describing him as someone audiences naturally trust. That trust isn't accidental. Tom Hanks rarely chooses characters defined by arrogance or spectacle. Instead, he specializes in portraying decent people facing difficult choices. Whether playing a soldier, a lawyer, an airline passenger stranded in an airport, or a newspaper editor fighting for press freedom, Hanks brings quiet dignity to every role. Those qualities perfectly match Spielberg's storytelling style. Both men believe audiences respond most strongly to hope, courage, and compassion. That shared philosophy has helped create some of the most enduring films of the last 3 decades. But Spielberg's admiration isn't limited to actors he has worked with repeatedly. Sometimes a single collaboration is enough to leave a lasting impression. That happened when he teamed up with Leonardo DiCaprio. By the early 2000s, DiCaprio had already become one of the world's biggest movie stars following the enormous success of Titanic. Yet Spielberg saw something beyond the celebrity image dominating magazine covers. He saw remarkable intelligence. In Catch Me If You Can, DiCaprio portrayed Frank Abagnale Jr., the real-life con artist who successfully impersonated an airline pilot, doctor, and lawyer before reaching adulthood. The role required incredible versatility. Frank constantly changes identities, adapting his personality depending on who he's trying to fool. One moment he's charming airline staff. The next he's confidently fooling experienced doctors or FBI agents. Spielberg believed DiCaprio possessed the perfect combination of youthful confidence and emotional vulnerability. Throughout filming, he discovered something else. The media's image of DiCaprio barely resembled the person behind the headlines. Instead of the reckless celebrity often portrayed by tabloids, Spielberg found an actor deeply devoted to his craft and closely connected to his family. He later admitted that working together completely changed his opinion. Their collaboration moved at an astonishing pace. Because Catch Me If You Can involved dozens of locations and constant costume changes, production progressed incredibly quickly. Spielberg's efficient directing style allowed scenes to be completed faster than many expected, while DiCaprio adapted effortlessly to the demanding schedule. Spielberg particularly admired DiCaprio's curiosity. Rather than simply memorizing dialogue, he constantly discussed character motivation, emotional rhythm, and storytelling choices. Those conversations helped shape several scenes, making Frank Abagnale feel like much more than an ordinary criminal. Instead, audiences saw a lonely young man desperately searching for identity, family, and acceptance. That emotional complexity elevated the film far beyond a traditional crime story. Although Spielberg and DiCaprio have surprisingly never reunited for another feature film, Spielberg has continued praising his talent in interviews, describing him as one of the finest actors of his generation. The final actor on Spielberg's unofficial list represents something even deeper than artistic collaboration. His story isn't remembered because of awards or blockbuster success. It's remembered because of friendship. Robin Williams possessed one of the fastest comic minds Hollywood has ever witnessed. When Spielberg cast him as Peter Banning in Hook, audiences saw Williams combine childlike imagination with heartfelt emotion. Although the film received mixed reviews upon release, Spielberg has always defended it as one of his most personal projects. Williams brought enormous warmth to the production. Off-camera, his kindness became just as memorable as his performances. That kindness revealed itself most profoundly several years later. While Spielberg directed Schindler's List, he experienced one of the emotionally draining periods of his career. Spending months recreating the horrors of the Holocaust affected everyone involved with the production. Robin Williams understood exactly how difficult the experience must have been. Rather than offering ordinary words of encouragement, he did something uniquely Robin Williams. He regularly phoned Spielberg simply to make him laugh. For several minutes at a time, Williams launched into completely improvised comedy routines filled with characters, voices, impressions, and rapid-fire jokes. There was no agenda. No discussion about work. Only laughter. Spielberg later recalled those phone calls with enormous gratitude, explaining they provided emotional relief during the darkest filmmaking experience of his life. Williams expected nothing in return. He simply wanted to help a friend. After making Spielberg laugh until he could barely breathe, Williams often ended the conversation abruptly, hanging up immediately after delivering the biggest punchline. That was Robin Williams. He instinctively knew when people needed joy. When Williams passed away in 2014, Spielberg paid heartfelt tribute to his friend, describing him as a brilliant artist whose humor masked extraordinary compassion. For Spielberg, Robin Williams wasn't merely another actor. He was someone who understood the emotional weight creative people often carry. Looking across these 6 remarkable performers, an interesting pattern begins to emerge. Harrison Ford brought courage and effortless charisma. Richard Dreyfuss embodied curiosity and youthful wonder. Daniel Day-Lewis demonstrated absolute commitment to authenticity. Tom Hanks represented integrity, humility, and quiet leadership. Leonardo DiCaprio offered intelligence, versatility, and emotional complexity. Robin Williams reminded everyone that kindness can matter just as much as talent. On the surface, these actors seem completely different. Some specialize in action. Others thrive in drama. Some transform themselves beyond recognition. Others succeed through natural simplicity. Yet Spielberg found something they all shared. They told the truth. No matter how spectacular the story became, whether dinosaurs escaped their enclosures, aliens visited Earth, soldiers stormed Normandy, or explorers searched for ancient treasures, Spielberg always believed audiences would only care if the characters felt emotionally real. These actors made that happen. They never chased attention for its own sake. They served the story. That philosophy mirrors Spielberg's own directing style. Despite becoming one of the most commercially successful filmmakers in history, he has consistently placed character above spectacle. Visual effects may amaze audiences, but genuine human emotion is what remains in memory decades later. Perhaps that's why Spielberg has enjoyed such extraordinary longevity. Technology changes. Special effects evolve. Movie trends come and go. But honest performances never become outdated. Looking back over more than 50 years of filmmaking, it's impossible to imagine Steven Spielberg's career without these extraordinary collaborators. Together, they created unforgettable heroes, heartbreaking historical figures, determined soldiers, dreamers, adventurers, and ordinary people placed in extraordinary situations. Each actor contributed something unique. Each helped define an era of cinema. And each earned Spielberg's admiration not simply because of awards or box office success, but because they consistently elevated every story they touched. In the end, Steven Spielberg's favorite actors reveal as much about the director as they do about the performers themselves. They show that beneath the spectacular action sequences, groundbreaking visual effects, and record-breaking blockbusters lies a filmmaker who has always believed that the greatest special effect in cinema is still a believable human performance. That belief has shaped every masterpiece he has directed, and it is why these 6 actors remain forever connected to one of the greatest storytellers the world has ever known.